Greetings and welcome to episode 42 of the Metaverse Nomads live stream. Three of the usual suspects here. Myself, Jesse, also known as Whitticus. We've got Ray Veezy and we've got Fancy Hat. How's it going, guys?
We're going down with the market or up with I don't know anymore. What's happening?
Wait, there was something happened this week? What? There was some events?
I don't know. Something happened. I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Oh, yeah. How you doing, Fancy?
Yeah, it's great to be back.
It is good to be back. So we got some Star Atlas stuff this week. We got a little bit of Metaverse news that we'll jump into before that. But we've got a bunch of good updates, things that are moving along with Star Atlas from the last town hall, which is probably the most eventful alpha drop Star Atlas town hall that I think we've had in quite some time. So it gives us some good info to work with, as well as they've been, of course, doing some good lore stuff and posting to their blog. So
yeah, I was transcribing it in real time, and it was hard to keep up with all the alpha that was dropping out there.
Nice. So we're going to start with what do we got on deck for news?
So, yeah, the obvious first story is what happened to Luna this week. And, affected the whole ecosystem, the UST, the algorithmic stablecoin, and Luna just crashed by over 90%. And the price now is very, very low. So,
Go to this. The 7 day.
7 day.
Yeah. So see, this is what I was talking to you about before on the show, Ray. You saw that, like, I guess the news hit like on around the 9th, something like that, and then it didn't just do a straight free fall. That's like over the span of 2 days, but it just happened to be one freaking window where I was working on other stuff, and I go, you know what? I'm not going to pay attention to the market right now. So, man, I just got wrecked. I rode that all the way down. And you saw there was, like, once you heard news like that, you could have gotten off the ride, stopped some of the bleeding, but no, right. I just rode that sucker all the way down and got beat the hell up.
Yeah, it sucked that this happened in such a short amount of time. A lot of people were probably or aware of something like this probably happening, or if not, were maybe moving money around, but so many people lost money. And other than the shorts that were made just in the last maybe 24 hours or a short amount of time, people have made money because Luna just jumped up 3,000+%. So, people, it's a shame that it happened the way it did. And right. But if you kept your ears to the ground, it was always something that was potentially going to happen. So with these algorithmic stablecoins, it's just So all the Bitcoin that's potentially backing the price of Luna essentially had to have been sold off because that was held as collateral in a sense. And then we don't know what happened with the Bitcoin yet, to my knowledge. So a lot has happened since the initial drop all the way up until today. And there's a recovery plan that's going to be issued today. I was traveling, so I wasn't able to just keep my pulse on what's happening on the current updates, but supposedly there's a plan, and the Luna token has gone up, right? So it's a risky play, but I don't know. To each their own.
Right.
Yeah,
People hoping it's
and
going to bounce off the floor.
the Quan guy, CoffeeZilla did a great video breaking the whole situation down. If you want to learn more about it, that's what I would recommend. But this Daquan guy definitely didn't do any favors. He had a bet with a guy on Twitter about if the price would be lower in a year or not, and he kept on upping it because he was just so confident that the price was going to be lower. So yeah, here's a clip from something he was on 9 days ago talking about. Let's see.
I wonder how many of these companies you think are entering the space just because it's hot and there's a lot of funding versus the ones that will still be here, you know, like 2 to 5 years later.
95% are going to die.
Yeah.
95% are going to die. Yeah. But yeah, there's also entertainment in watching companies die too.
There's entertainment. Oh man, that's so evil. At least you get to learn from it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a lot of footage and even things that he wrote on Twitter that people, and it goes to show that no matter if you're a developer or a person creating a project or just, you know, co-hosts on a show, like if you're going to act in a way and respond to comments that are not in a good light, it will come right back at you. So maybe he's not as bad as all these Twitter posts and videos that he's been in. You know, maybe he's not that bad of a person, but we'd never really know. And that's besides the point, because at the end of the day, we need to know what happened with all that Bitcoin that was held, and if it is going to be used in what way to maybe salvage the name of or the continuation of whatever they're going to do. The trust is obviously not there, but if you keep up with the project, many in the past have gone bust and rebranded in a way that and they came back. So yeah, so again, to each their own with your opinions on who he is and where he came from, but this doesn't help at all either.
Yeah, this story, May 11th, is one of the things that was in CoffeeZilla's video, and he was behind another algorithmic stablecoin project called Basis Cash. So yeah, it's not looking very good.
Yeah, and your history records and your track record is pulled up in real time as these things are happening, or very soon afterwards. So everything is transparent, more or less, and it's just a matter of time before a system that was built has its red flags show more and more over time. And there's a plethora of comments and people who were warning about this months ago, even at its inception, right, that are coming to the surface now, and you're just like, wow. So. But there you go. The understanding of what these are and what it all means, what is algorithmic stablecoins, the backing of this all, if it's solvent or not, how long will it last? Like these things are, they umbrella everything that we do just with these games we talk about, and then also similarly could be incorporated in the economies of the games as well. So that was more of a DeFi thing. Yeah, I think it was like Levana, one of the games being built that was like a decentralized exchange similar to DeFi Kingdoms on Harmony, but all of the ecosystems projects kind of went down following Luna, more so than just a macro downtrend of the markets with Bitcoin. So many people, I don't know, like prayers to everyone, because at this point it's just like it's going to be a long haul to recovery.
Yeah, if there is a recovery, and events like this really bring people closer to Bitcoin in a fashion. Decentralization, and you can't let people run a project who don't have good intentions.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. There's a website that you can track all the major Bitcoin holders and their wallets, and they're all buying up. The top 100 wallets have been buying. And you can tell when they bought last, which was maybe at the last dip of 2018-ish, and then somewhere in between. But yeah, people keep track of these things, and it's all there. It's just it goes to show that in these times, it is a buyer's market, and for specific coins that are actually maybe worth more and more sound as a quote unquote currency, depending on what side you're on. But yeah, Bitcoin is being bought up next to Ethereum, but it's happening. Yep.
It's interesting, even with what happened with Terra, like friends and family that, hit me up for advice and stuff. I tell them all the time that, hey, look, this is all still speculation. This is still a market that is so new, But I say if you are going to go the route, it's the same. And again, not financial advice, but never spend more than you actually have to lose. Don't make, in the risk for trying to create life-changing money, don't lose life-changing money, because that really sucks. But also what the guy was saying about 95% of coins, I believe that 95% of coins will disappear, but it's also different when you look at the top cap coins. I don't think that 95% of those are going to disappear, simply because they've established enough use case, they have enough projects behind them and enough communities that are supporting it. But at the same time, hopefully, there's enough checks and balances and audits and measures in place and safeguards. And these are things that this is how industries learn the hard way, man. They're just, where there's a big bloodletting.
Yeah. And if you have enough like that, you would cry if you lost it, then it's worth protecting yourself.
Yeah, you can cry. Wallets. I lost enough to cry, but I'm still here.
So there was a
yeah, and for a lot of people, it's these major downtrends that you go through that make you just feel much better when it happens the next time. But hopefully the lesson was learned to scrape some off the top for taxes, and then also just for your own security. But this is not financial advice, so do as you please.
Yeah. And another interesting news story this week was that NASA has partnered with Epic Games to build a Martian metaverse simulation. I thought this was a really cool announcement.
Yeah, it is cool.
Yeah, and just the way everything works in like Unreal Engine 5, which is owned by Epic Games, it's all like modular, so they might build things that we could just like pull and attach to Star Atlas in future. So yeah, would you guys play something like this?
That's funny, Watson. So Epic Games is doing. It's interesting. So as I've been like doing a bunch of metaverse research, I obviously did a whole bunch on Epic Games and on Fortnite, and it's just amazing that how there's essentially 3 engines that are jockeying for position right now to be able to create 3D worlds. So we're going to keep seeing, news like that with Epic, with Unity, and also with Omniverse, which is NVIDIA. And the reason that they're also a big player is because basically Omniverse came from out of Pixar. So when Pixar was trying to figure out how do we create these immersive 3D worlds and also allow for collaboration of 3D designers around the world, they developed this Omniverse platform. And it's since then evolved in such a way that it seems to be one of the platforms of choices for brands to look to build their digital twin. And of course, there's going to be a lot of overlap because there will be things that work within each of these engines or things that are built in each of these engines that can actually be used in some of the others. But yeah, just the big push towards realism, is just blows my mind. Like how far we've come from Pong 50 years ago, 2 paddles in a freaking ball, to stuff now that's really difficult to say whether it's it's real or CGI generated.
Yeah, great point.
Yeah, it's all promising.
I look forward to seeing some of the other competitors, and it's going to be good when there are actually things to play. And there was a lot of good things about Star Atlas this week, even though the market is looking quite red, and people are talking about legislation, which So,
every time I see it just every time I see talk about legislation for it, when they look for an opportunity of a newsworthy event to be able to push legislation, it just reminds me of the driving force behind why they're doing it. And I was talking to Ray about this, so I'll pull this up on the screen now because I think it's kind of relevant. It's that here. Share screen.
Yeah, I'll play the video afterwards.
Okay.
Cool.
Is this guy right here. I don't know if you guys ever come and take a look at this thing here, but this is the US debt clock. And you can just look how fast this thing goes up and how much they keep adding to it. You can actually come over here and go back all the way to the 80s, where you can see that we hadn't even hit a trillion yet, to where then it jumps all the way up. Let me jump all the way to 2000, where at this point, now it's 5.7 trillion. And then, of course, today it's at 30 trillion. And then, it just keep spending. And so the US government's talking about regulations when it's like, there's no sign of being able to manage what we have. And it's like, hey, we need money. Here's another stimulus package for billions. Where's it going to come from? We can't even pay the debts we already have. So it's just the death throes of fiat currency and just looking for ways to maintain control. Not to say that there's not going to be some use cases for where there might be some legislation, but just to go at it blindly without understanding it. And when I say understanding it, I mean, I think that the bulk of them understand it the same way they understood Facebook when Facebook was up on a hearing. It's like the questions they were asking, it was just completely absurd. So how do you guys make money?
Yeah. And it's just like these opportunities, everyone takes advantage of these opportunities, whether you're a retail investor or you're the government themselves. It was almost exact timing of when Janet Yellen had a conversation talking about more restrictions or protection that people need on part of themselves to help and for legislation to be passed and things to do and a timeline to do it. As the market was going down, they mentioned UST. I think they also mentioned USD, another stable coin they mentioned. And it's just like they're going to harp on this and take advantage as they see fit and as far as they can push the envelope to then have more control in the space and also benefit from it as well. So, we'll see how it all goes in the government. But if anything, it's a bullish sign, right? Again, both sides of the spectrum. We do need regulation. Like as much as I want a total decentralized, peer-to-peer, no government entanglements and hands in the cookie jar at all, it's almost like if we're left to do what we want to do and projects that are going to be creating things and then ultimately we're not knowing the intentions and then no consequences come from that, I guess that's it right there. That's your full freedom, you have full custody and self-sovereign, and you do as you do with your money, and you have to be the wiser. But if 80% of people are not the wiser and they're constantly being exit liquidity for the people who have been in the game for a very long time, then I don't know. And this is not me on one side or another per se. It's just like there's so much harm that can be done to more people, and all of the money consolidates just like we know in the traditional world into the hands of the few because of the amount of money they have and the history and experience and education from doing it. So, yeah, that was my side piece.
I'm grateful for your point. I hope you will agree to work with me and my colleagues who are interested in getting something done. Do you think we could shoot for a goal of getting legislation done this year?
I think it would be highly appropriate. The outstanding stock of stable coins is growing at a very rapid rate, and we really need a consistent federal framework. I really look forward to working with you and members of Congress to devise legislation that would accomplish that.
Great. I'm grateful for your point. I hope you will agree to work with me and my colleagues who are interested in.
That was a clean loop. I didn't even realize.
But yeah, the rhetoric will continue, and I don't know if the interests of the people are totally what they care about, but as time goes on, we'll just have to see.
Yeah, I agree. And it'll be interesting how that happens. I know there'll be pushback, but will it be enough for them to care?
Stay tuned for next episode. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was going to say the things that I'm really most interested in. Again, we're in this interesting place where so many technologies are colliding, and so many different ideas, and so many ways that humanity looks at itself to get a bit esoteric. And we're at this place where we have an opportunity now, the way the web's going to change towards decentralization. And if we can create virtual worlds in the metaverse where these economies and these forms of governance can be practiced in such a way that we actually get to experience and see what decentralization looks like, what does a distribution of power look like, then hopefully we can learn from that and start to implement some of those models into the real world. Because what ultimately happens when we don't do that now with centralization, be it centralized government, centralized finance with banks, all of these things lead towards just an absolute abuse of power in a situation where it's ripe for collusion, where no one except the people at hand then in the corners are being able to figure out how the rest of the people are supposed to live based on the rules that are put in place. And I think we're in this time where we're going to see that start to shift and change. It's going to be a bumpy road. It's going to be a long one, but we're in a place now where the technology and infrastructure is going to support new ways of being. And we're going to have the opportunity to explore those.
Yeah. So on to the next story. Citibank and Wells Fargo invest in Talos for $1.25 billion, which is a cryptocurrency company. So as prices tumbled, they're buying, which is bullish, as I think.
Yep. You're going to see big money coming in over the counter and not swaying the markets so much, but yeah, the manipulation is on another level from many angles. Keep your eyes open.
Huge.
Yeah, I agree. So that was all I had for news this week. Let's go on to Star Atlas. So, yeah, we discovered what Scream actually means this week. It's changed around a couple times, and I would have been unsure if you asked me, but it's ship combat resource extraction and manufacturing. Which, yeah, like how it says combat. It wasn't something I was expecting this early.
I think it's bold. I think it encompasses a lot more gameplay than I expected. I thought that for the first, I mean, we're going right now from basically just staking to now making this big leap to include a lot of different gameplay elements. And I know we've got a lot to go through, but just even the number of resources, the fact that this is going to be looking to be the switch to more of a player-based economy where the players are creating the 4 Rs of resources for ships. Yeah, so it's a big leap. Yeah. I'm curious, is this supposed to be all released at the same time with the first version, or is some of that going to be left out?
So this is one of the questions that Chipto answered on the town hall was, what would you do on day one? So you deposit your ships into Scream and build up faction points to progress your player. You will need Solana, 4 Rs, and a ship. Your ship will drop into the central space station, 1 per faction. The highest tier of Starbase is 6. You deploy your ships out, collect resources, craft products, gain loyalty points, purchase more hangars. And the medium risk zone, that's going to be like a future update.
Okay, so there is no medium to start.
Wait, I think I got that wrong. There's no hard. No.
Okay, yeah, right. There's no high risk zone.
Yeah,
but there is.
So
there's a low risk and a medium. That's how I understood it too.
Yeah. So it's going to be interesting to actually see what does happen on day one, like transitioning out of the Scream, the score gameplay, which is still going to be active when all of this comes online.
The question that I didn't hear asked on the town hall, which I think is an important one, is have they figured out ways for this to integrate with hardware wallets, or is that going to be an issue, at the time of launch? And the other thing, like that Punjab mentioned there, with regards to upgrade hangars, buy more slots. This is the one burr that's stuck in me about how it's being launched, and hopefully it'll be changed before they get there. But one of the things that was said is that, hey, to participate in this game, all you need is your ship and a little bit of Atlas Solana for the transaction fees. Well, it sounds so far like that's only partially true. Let's say that we don't even know the hangar size, the base model hangar that everyone gets for free and what that will accommodate. So let's say that that's a large ship. What if the only ship you own is the ship above that? Well, you actually have to pay out of pocket to upgrade to be able to play the game. Otherwise you can't. So to me, that's the only thing I'm like, because the way I see it, the person should have a hangar that accommodates the largest ship they have in their fleet.
Yeah, if you have just for example, a Calico Guardian and you have like a small hangar, that would be really awkward. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I've zoomed in on the picture here on the screen, and you can see all of these different fleets labeled A to D. And yeah, it's all very interesting, trying to like figure out what's what, and looks very different from what we saw last week. I like the UI a bit more, but they did talk about a dark mode as well. I'd probably use that.
They talked about what?
Like a light mode and a dark mode.
Oh yeah. What do you guys generally use? I usually use dark mode. It's easier on my eyes.
Always. Yes, dark.
It'd be weird to play a space sim in like light mode, wouldn't it?
Right. Well, it might be better if you wanted to see things, on a white backdrop. It could, but depending on how dark it is, and then whatever ship is dark on top of dark, I guess that. But yeah, I digress. But I wasn't able to catch the town hall or read the article, so this is going to be news to me. I was just able to get the opinions and the summaries. So, but I'm excited for it, and I think the combat was something that was not expected this early on from across the space. So that's a great thing to see that they're pushing in that way to have us be able to do more than just click some more, but actually think about what we're doing instead of just clicking.
Right. So, and they did mention it's very similar nature to gameplay. I guess the thing most comparable to and the thing that influenced it most is Solaris, and that's a game that I have played, and I really do enjoy that style of strategy gameplay. So that part is also, I think, really cool.
Cool. Yeah. I haven't played that, but I do think it's on sale on stream right now. So yeah, I might grab that later. So this is the context of Scream on the Star Atlas issue number 7. And we're going to go through it today because it has a lot of cool things in there. So for reasons to be disclosed through the law, a veiled conflict is happening in the universe at the time of Scream. Although the Treaty of Peace is officially in force, the 3 faction guilds move their fleet through the galaxy, trying to integrate different systems into their faction, effectively creating their so-called medium risk zone. Although the factions say they are not involved with any warlike activity, incursions of Mud, ONI, and Ooster Dax have been witnessed in nearby systems. Moreover, Dax are building enormous structures called star bases, which the population of said systems perceive to be means of political dominance. This has turned into a conflict with the political powers that have ruled these worlds. Factions like the Jorvik and Ecos don't take this intrusion quietly, and clashes spread like wildfire. There have even been reports of Dax from different factions clashing with one another. The situation is getting more dire by the day. First, many star bases are pushing to bring progress to neighboring systems. Planets that were once outside of the faction's influence are now being depleted of their resources to grease the war machine. Finally, the rumor has it that Atlas secretly flows from the factions to their DAC for service. The Council of Peace is being pressured externally by the factions and internally by their political parties. Everyone in the galaxy is holding their breath. And then, yeah.
So is that to say that there's an expectation that DAX will be functional by then?
So yeah, the whole part about Scream being more multiplayer than it seems, that's at the bottom right here. So yeah, we'll read that when we get to it.
Okay.
It will be interesting to play with each other when all of this does come down to it, because if you have a big guild, you can take over a big space.
Right.
But maybe you take over too much, and a small guild can spread you too thin, or a load of small guilds can do it. So yeah, it's interesting. What I like about this is it talks about Jorvik and Nikos as like the natives who are going to be angry that we're like coming forward, and I do think it like sets the stage quite well for everything. How yeah, it's not as hectic as everything's going to be. People are just like starting out, expanding, and I'm assuming we're gonna jump into like the initial start of a war or something. Yeah.
So it sounds like that in the very beginning that each faction, whatever faction you're related to, you're participating with. So you have your DAC, which is basically your guild. So your guild is participating, and then your faction collectively is participating to build a major star base in each of the faction territories. And then you're also looking to gain star systems within that medium zone is what it sounds like, which is interesting because basically you're creating this structure where you have conflict between the three factions without having a high risk zone, as were in the past when we looked at sheets. That's kind of how we saw it, as the high risk zone was a separator, but now it sounds like a lot of that will be happening within the medium risk zone.
Yeah, well, there is still medium risk zone that is just free or inhabited by the natives. I don't see why they would go to a harder place until they need to.
Yeah, and also to work out game bugs before you have people risking their ships out in deep space.
yeah, that's that for sure. So, who wants to take on the macro game logic of Scream?
Sure. Is that here? Yeah. To summarize, Scream is about dominating different star systems for the benefit of your faction by gaining access to various resources. The heart of Scream gameplay is the starbase. Starbases are structures that serve as economic and political support that allow a faction to control a given star system. The higher the tier of starbase, the stronger the hold of a faction in that system. Greater consolidated power from the higher tier starbases enable members of the dominating faction to harvest the resources of planets further away from the system center. That's interesting. On the economic front, starbases will serve as a deposit of harvested material. As a starbase progresses through upgrades, players will be able to use it to trade and craft refined materials, creating more expensive and complex space infrastructures to support their factions in outer space. In this sense, the creation, upgrade, attack, and defense of starbases are of utmost importance to the factions. This is true for the DACs of Star Atlas, as well as this represents a faction's grasp of the galaxy. The coordination of these actions, together with the resource gathering and the logistics of the supply routes, constitutes the core of Scream gameplay loops. So, yeah, it's interesting in that we know that there's going to be 20 resources, but we don't yet know what these resources do. We know 4 of them. Actually, we don't know 4 of them. I was going to say the 4 R's, but we don't know if the 4 R's are something that are manufactured from the resources. Like, in other words, are you mining fuel directly, or does fuel have to be created? Things like that. Obviously, you're not going to mine ammunition, so that's not going to be a resource. So will there be 20 resource types, or is when he refers to resources, I'm wondering if he's just saying that basically there will be 20 different items that can be used for crafting and also become the crafted goods.
Yeah, I think there's if I'm thinking resources, I'm thinking of the 3 that each faction has as it shares on the I guess the official website. That could be 9 of the 20, but we don't. I wouldn't know if there were any that were mentioned before this, in maybe articles or whatnot. But go ahead, Fancy.
I'm not too sure, so I have them here. It's 10 on Icium and Diamond for mud, ONI is Jasperus, Chisenik, and gold. Then Ooster is Viscovite, Dodaline, and lithium.
Right. So if these
Yeah.
are local resources, as it states, then maybe the rest are going to be where you wouldn't consider it your zone. And even if it is, it would probably be in a different region. We know like Tufa and the Chai ships need to be built not in the most immediate first zone, and you need to venture out to get those materials. So I guess materials and resources they're different, but I guess a lot of the resources that we don't know enough about the different types of resources yet. Just the ones I guess that were just shown here.
Yeah, I
And,
agree.
And I like how at the end of Jess's part here, the logistics are now being mentioned as something that's going to be more important, as it was just like a topic of conversation. Every one of these space games, logistics is like a very important thing to
Right.
pay attention to and to get down um, and situated with. But now it's going to be a reality. So hopefully everybody was planning along that timeline. But it's time to get to work. Logistics.
Speaking of timelines, does the roadmap in notation, does it suggest when they're hoping to have this completed? Is there a target?
I don't think they're going to tell us a date, even if they were sure they would. Like, things can happen.
Yeah, I
they
mean,
learn that the hard way. But
do we think it's Q3, Q4, Q1 of next year?
Well, in the town hall, I believe they said they have like 6 feature releases this year, including like a referral program, the showroom, and they also mentioned a secret project that is going to be revealed at the same time as the showroom.
Yeah.
Where, what does it say? I'm trying to find the quote. Yeah, a secret project is going to be released around the same time as the showroom, flying around space with NFT assets, replayability, multiplayer, and guild meetings were mentioned. So, yeah, that'd be real fun. No idea when all of that will come, but yeah, sooner than later, hopefully.
Hey, Hugness, was that mentioned, or is that you're speculating Q4? Curious to know. And then, yeah, so of those releases, then also I'm assuming that they're trying to work in the Polis DAO into that as well, as Polis continues to take a dip. What is it, down to about 70 cents right now? 78, somewhere there? 60, 78, something like that.
Somewhere.
It's down there. 72 cents. That's yeah. And I'm also curious to know, have they mentioned recently what the governance wallet is at right now, the one that collects all of the 4Rs for ship missions thus far since mid-December? Curious to know what that's at.
I think they did release which wallet was in, so they're just assuming we can check it after that now. We could try and dig that up for next episode.
Cool. Yeah, the DAX thing is pretty cool. I mean, if they can get that in place, and they are doing some stuff that it's interesting in this space right now. When you're developing a project, a lot of it you're trailblazing yourself because it hasn't been done before. And then fortunately, there's other things you can pull from. There's no doubt that Star Atlas gets to benefit greatly from the years of development on Star Citizen. No question about that whatsoever. The progression of development for the UE5 version of Star Atlas would be a lot further out if they had not had that to lean on. But examples of things that they don't have to lean on are, for example, the wallet integration they're going to have within the showroom. That's something that they had to create themselves. And what's cool about that is that they're making a software developer kit available for people to use that and do cool things with it. So I think that is one of the ways that Star Atlas is really serving the industry by sharing the things that it is creating so that other people can expand upon that, which falls in line with an open web, which I think is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Sure.
Do you want to take this one, Ray?
Yeah, let's do it. So, if star bases are the cornerstone of Scream, And Galaxy's environment, the Galaxy's environment is the game's foundation. Every star system will be composed of planets dispersed through different locations in the star system. Each is unique, possessing different attributes that determine the materials that can be acquired from it and its overall utility in the galaxy's economy. Since star-based construction and defense is a demanding task, requiring that players commit substantial resources and human coordination, they must consider how the conquest of a said system will impact their faction agenda on a political and economic level. Therefore, players should analyze the planets present in each system. In Scream, more than 20 types of resources will be dispersed amongst planets throughout the galaxy, or among the planets throughout the galaxy. They will obey a logic of rarity and location, meaning that some resources may be more common in a part of the universe than others. All of these resources will have in-game utility for factions and players on their path to conquer the stars. So we foresee the mobilization of factions to secure rare resources and materials found in the deeper reaches of space. Last but not least, however, take care with those deep space expeditions. Otherwise, you will see yourself out of fuel and out of options. That's exciting. Yeah, I like the fact that, like I said earlier, we're going to be doing way more that involves planning instead of just clicking. So now it's incorporating guilds and its multiple members to coordinate on the back end, rather in the discords, to mobilize in a way now that was not a reality just months and months before. Rome specifically planned for, and other guilds as well, for all of this, as if it was going to happen that day when the Rebirth campaign was out and you could buy the posters. So the enthusiasm is there, and it's just about time that the Star Atlas caught up with some of that enthusiasm. So thanks team.
Yeah, and that strategic gameplay that it looks like it's developing into is a pretty awesome fit for our internal structure for being able to get squads together and be able to collaborate and make missions happen. So I'm excited to see how that rolls out. There's a couple things that for me that I was curious about. So I was looking for clues in some of the things that Chipto was sharing. And he did mention that when you go out into missions, and I don't know if this is something you were saying is probably a little bit further down. If so, just let me know and I'll hold off on talking about that, about what happens in the different zones and what you can lose. Is that later, Fancy?
He mentioned it on the stream, yes, but he might have put it in here as well. Okay. There's some overlap. But
okay, so if you don't know, I'll go ahead and just share it. So he was talking about how when you are in the mid-tier zone, first of all, there's going to be an opportunity for PvP and PvE. So you don't have to commit to one or the other, but you will, if you are in the mid-tier zone, there's going to be situations where you could not lose your ship will respawn, but you will lose your cargo and you will lose the 4Rs. Now, the thing that I was hoping that someone was going to ask or that he would mention is what happens to your cargo? Is it just sitting out there? Is it acquired by someone else? Does it just disappear? What happens to that cargo?
Well,
if you got a whole ship of stuff.
They have a tracer beam, I believe, so you can pull things in depending on its size. So it could possibly just pick it up like coins after defeating something.
Mm-hmm.
That could be interesting.
Yeah.
If there were just pieces of like scrap just flying across the universe forever, it would be quite buggy, I imagine.
Or if you had someone, I mean, that could be a use case where I'm making the future. If you've got someone that has really good scanning equipment, and they're actually out just looking for scraps, scrap hauler going out that's got good scanning, could be a way to make a living. One of the other things no, go ahead.
No, I wanted to make a point on that. It would be cool, as we had Chipto on before. I think I suggested it, or maybe someone in the comments, or one of us. But having a timer on when a ship's resources are just floating from a battle that was lost or not, or anything that's out there. Maybe the scanners have first dibs on depending on how efficient their scanning is to with a time to get to it, and if not, then it goes public so everyone in the area can see that that item until it expires, if there's even an expiration on these materials, because that would have. But then again, on the other side of the spectrum, it would be a mass battle or rush to one area, and it could be flanked. There's pros and cons to it. I could just keep entertaining the thought, but it would be cool if only scanners were able to have maybe the ability to, and there would be so many that it's not gonna, I guess, sway the whole game in a way that favors scanning compared to you just being out there and falling upon these resources or these things to pick up.
Yeah,
that was just a thought.
The other big question that I had is related to like resources is at what point we will have an understanding of how much cargo each ship style can hold. For example, and maybe it's just maybe it'll be something like, we know there's going to be 20 different types of resources. So maybe there'll be like a chart that says this resource takes up this much space for 1,000 of them or something like that. And then compare it to, like, if a person's out there trying to haul resources on their X4, it's not really going to work very well. But then again, if you have a freighter, what is the difference in capacity between what is it? Which rainbow? Is it the rainbow?
Ohm?
Is it the Ohm?
There's a couple of them.
The Ohm is transport. Yep.
Yeah. So the Ohm carries goods. So how much can it carry versus the other freighter, the one that looks like a tanker ship?
Thimblebios.
Yeah, like how much? What is the carrying capacity of that versus the other? Also, what is the carrying capacity of that ship that you just showed there versus, say, a Calico Guardian? A Calico Guardian is not meant to haul stuff, but you would think it's going to have some cargo bay. So, I'm curious to know, because it sounds like that's going to be an important piece of the game. You're going to have combat, and you're going to have manufacturing, and then of course. He did mention that, for example, that each different type of class of ship will have some bonus based on or some special utility. For example, the bombers are the one he uses as an example. How a bomber, if it's bombing something, it's going to obviously do a lot more damage towards us. And I think he said starbase. So does that mean that we will actually be doing PvE in that regard, like trying to take other bases?
So this section may go into it a bit more. I'll go with this one. So let's discuss some of the mechanics of Scream. The first and most prominent aspect of the gameplay logic is that as you play, you will burn resources. Your fleet will need fuel to fly, toolkits to repair the damage, ammo to engage in combat, and food for the crew. Acquisition of these resources will occur through the gameplay loops. This means that players will always be fighting two silent enemies. The maintenance costs, like in Score, and the opportunity costs, a new additional particular to the logic of Scream. Unlike Score, there will be no guarantee that your ship's earning will outweigh the maintenance costs. Instead, your contributions to the faction and your overall in-game choices will determine whether you profit or lose in your galaxy adventures. You have no guarantee of success in your Scream expeditions. There is also no reward without labor. You will be facing citizens of the galaxy who are not particularly pleased with the Dax attacking their territory, and players of other factions who will be fighting to achieve the same opportunity. Most importantly, there can only be one winner in each battle, hence the necessity to make the best choice with the available information and coordinate your DAX members in a crucial aspect of Scream. Don't expect to conquer star bases by yourself. This takes us to the next topic. How will players rally to defend their factions and spread their power? It all starts with hangers. Yeah, and that's quite an interesting topic to discuss, but yeah. Sorry, Rick, go on.
Two things that stood out to me was there's no promise on a return on investment on whatever your actions are going to be for Score. So that brought to mind the millions of dollars worth of assets that VCs are now entrusting a guild to manage. and if it's even worth doing that, instead of just staking them. So that essentially keeps those ships out of the zones to either PvP or to harvest resources with. It's a numbers game at that point, right? And then the minds of the mathematicians need to get to work. But and then the other thing, I think, if I could remember now, was I don't remember. So, but yeah, that one was one of the major ones where it's just like, what's the incentive now to even participate in score if the promise, or at what points in times will it be beneficial? What gaming loops and habits or routines does a guild and its ships need to do to be profitable, right? Do they even I think there's going to be a lot of time that's put into just the numbers of everything, as it's always been a main focal point. So we'll see how it all pans out.
There is, and I mean, and I know that I have a long history of being critical of certain things, and what I am critical of here, and I've mentioned this before, is when I look at a project as a whole, I look and I listen to what is being said from inception, and I always go back to one of the things that I heard that was implied on at least 3 different podcasts was that the initial expectation, and that paraphrasing, but Wagner said that a reasonable expectation for return on investment is about 1 year. That is where we're at, like within the first week or so of score being released. But as it stands right now, anyone that bought those original ships, based on what payout is today, not including what the actual cost of maintenance is about 7 years. That's a big delta. And so now, if all of a sudden you go from that to where there is no guarantee of any earnings, and because you have two different programs, Scream and Score, drawing from the reward pool, it's he already mentioned that reward pool is going to go down on Score. So now for people that were as investors that said, hey, look, I want to support this project. I like what the leadership is saying. These are reasonable expectations for a return. But now that is nowhere even in the playbook anymore. So what do you tell your investors when all of a sudden your message changes that dramatically from what it was back at the time prior to ship sales? That's a tricky one.
Well, yeah, so you reminded me of my second point of the reading was that active gameplay is rewarding. So this whole space of NFT gaming is transitioning to that, where it's just that you don't play to earn. Like, you need to be skilled and be good at something to then earn more than just what could potentially be a loss over time from your initial investment, or you never break even at all. Right. So it might not be for the faint of heart, but all of the games, and they're wording it in a way where you're going to play to own over time, or if you're going to be skilled, you'll earn enough to get your return in X amount of time. No promises, and whatever was said before was just for that moment in time, as the era was literally different than it is now just months ago. So yeah, skill-based playing is where everything should end up, right? We shouldn't just have people just putting money in and then taking it out once they get it back, because where are the gamers, right? We need a healthy balance of investors and gamers, and then people who, the ecosystem needs to be more diverse. Right now, it's just.
I agree that there should be an element of skill, but also if you're going to be charging, $10, $20, $30, $50, $100,000 for assets, and you're suggesting that there is ROI, that, and in that framework where you're pitching it, the marketing side of it, but you're not saying, hey, well,
right.
But our plan is also that eventually it will require that you must do all of these things, otherwise it won't happen.
Yeah,
that's
balance.
challenging. Yeah.
Because over time, the economy could be so robust where it's almost like a stable coin type of economy where you can expect to get, based off of certain habits and logistics and whatever your plan is for playing the game, you're going to come out knowing more or less it's going to be this amount of time to get a return. But until then, does all the assets of initial investors just go down tremendously and then balance out to what the market is going to tell you it's the price instead of what they were actually sold for? And then that's just going to be a loss, for that initial investment, and then you have to just make your way into the future with how the economy is going to end up being instead of what we think or what was told it was going to be.
So if I'm an average player and I match also the average amount of time played and the effort put forth, that should be kind of used as a baseline. If I don't show up at all and I'm not playing, then of course I shouldn't be earning, and I can appreciate that. And also if you have a rental model or something like that, where then I could loan or make other use of my assets and things like that, that also is helpful too. But I think there should be like an established baseline. And, you know, even if it was 18 months, 2 years, I still think that's reasonable. But also, I mean, that was mentioned, and that was the expectation I think that the community had, but we are nowhere near that now. So,
right, yeah, getting in early to get out early, maybe, but who knows? That might end too over time, right? Shout out to Shopping Channel for the comment. So those days are dwindling very fast as the wording and everyone's just transitioning as far as the developers of these games. You know, they get everyone in. And, you know, not with ill intent, but, you know, just because we support the project. This is us talking about numbers and return on investment doesn't mean that that's all we care about. Right. As we know, the breed to rent model, right, with a lot of games, or the tokenomics of the governance token versus the utility token, as there's a 2-token model. Like, there's all these factors at play that could either destroy a project if all the people who get in are just doing one thing over the other. Right? If you're going to breed to rent, if that's a model in the game you're in, then that could be taken advantage of and exploited to then put downward pressure on the tokens, right? And if there really is no governance to any governance token yet, because everyone is still centralized in more ways than not, then what's the point of the governance token? So we have to put things into perspective, and maybe this Luna crash maybe made people think twice about how much money they're putting into certain tokens. But hopefully, if everything falls in line with the DAO coming out and staking and maybe renting ships, like Jess was saying, it'll balance out what makes us return or get a return in a sooner time than later, based on what was said. Because we have to meet each other somewhere in the middle. We just can't hold everyone's feet to the fire every step of the way and then say, "Fuck this," you know, this is a trash project. Because 80% of people do that, and then there's much more promise in the future for these projects than just when you got in and then when you want your return on investment.
And what you're saying is important, because the thing that we do have to remember is that projects in development do need the flexibility to pioneer and pave the way. But at the same time, in my humble opinion, it's also equally important to remind a project and a project lead, the team, of their message prior to launching. That doesn't ever go away. And it's not like there's not flex, but when you say things, you should be held accountable to the things that you say. And again, the progression that I have that I follow with this is that the team is doing pioneering stuff, and I give them props all day for the stuff they're doing, and it's amazing. And I love this project. But I can also say that there is a disconnect between some of the early message and where we are today, and it's never been accounted for. And then you lay on top of that the fact that there's been a bunch more ships that have been sold that have further reduced the value of the existing ships, because now you have this surplus that you flooded the market with. But why, if we're not at a place yet where we need it? Well, some might say, well, we need to raise capital. Well, Star Atlas, and Wagner himself specifically, has said that they already have more resources than they can deploy. So it's not a resource factor. So it's just a matter of, I'm going to pay attention to the message that has been shared all along, just to make sure that we're tracking consistently with the message that was delivered. That doesn't mean that development is not going to zig and zag and discover new things and all of a sudden say, hey, we have to scrap this and do this, but it should be an ongoing conversation.
Yeah, I agree. We kind of had the same problem with Gala, always releasing new NFTs.
Right.
But if they are going to build a blockchain game, they do need these assets out there already. And it is something we do need to appreciate, because, as you said, it is a massive feat they are trying to achieve.
Yeah, you could throw Axie Infinity in there as well, into that bucket of things that were shown or said in a roadmap and that were talked about and essentially promised to early investors or holders of the NFTs, and then only now, until there's enough downward pressure on either tokens or the community now rising up on some level to demand that there's a forum or a place to talk, to hold people accountable in a certain way. And it's not really asking for too much. I guess it's if it's the team that's keeping up with it, then at the point of when the community demands, then it could either be too much because you weren't making the right moves along the way, along with development of the game, to then match what you said earlier for those community members. Because now everyone's just following the carrot on the stick until what there's an agreement, or people just have to leave. If you don't want your NFTs and you don't support the project, you just get out. I guess that's an option.
So, Ron Megry, to your point here, they did say that they were going to release 120 ships over the year. However, they also said on many, many occasions that they would be adjusting the reward structure, and there has not been a single adjustment. So there's that balance.
Yeah.
What do we got?
So this was about hangers and faction loyalty.
Back to the juice.
The juice. Oh, are we here?
Yep.
Each player that we're at?
Yeah.
Oh, is that, am I on deck?
I'm not sure. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, if that was the order.
All right. Each player that chooses to venture into the void in Scream will start at a hangar within their faction safe zone. So that's pretty cool. I think we all knew that. The hangars are critical structures in Scream, as the number of hangars a player has determines the number and class of ships the player can play. There's also structures organized in tiers. So the higher the level of your hangar, the larger the vessel you'll be able to fit in it. Here's where things get interesting. You will need to play and work your way into acquiring hangars that allow you to deploy certain kinds of vessels into the gameplay, like Titan ships, for example. Also, players are not permitted to purchase new hangars with Atlas. So I guess what they're saying here is that you can, your first hangar that you get, you can upgrade that immediately with Atlas to accommodate your ships, but you can't buy new hangars with Atlas. You'll have to use points in the game to get new hangars, I'm assuming. The three factions are very sensitive to who acquires new hangars, as space is limited in their bases. Only those who have proven themselves will be allowed to expand their fleet by acquiring new hangars. In other words, you will be given the privilege of acquiring new spaces for your fleet inside Scream through consistent and meaningful gameplay in the interest of your faction. Huh, that's interesting. So that's essentially saying that how is that determined? Like, is that go to a DAO vote, or is that just to say that you've got to earn points, and those points are what gives you the ability through your glory from what you've accomplished to be able to have more hangars? Or is there actually some other way that the faction itself can say who does and does not get additional hangars?
Well, perhaps that's like something that we could be awarded for having our ship staked and having like the fleet rank, or it could just be like a reputation system, like WoW, like it's easy to get the first system, then a bit harder to get the next level up, and a bit harder until you're exalted.
Right. Yeah, the way I read it is that the faction, whichever it may be that you're in, are going to have like achievements to unlock or to work towards, and then through that consistent, meaningful gameplay of accomplishing those achievements, maybe that little bar going up of percentage of completion, then you would have the privilege to acquire new spaces for your fleet, and those are going to be like the biggest macro goals. Some might be easy, take shorter amount of time, and some might be more difficult that require bigger ships that people might not have in the faction to contribute. Mm-hmm. So it'll be interesting to see how or what those achievements are, what you need to do to have the privilege of acquiring new spaces for your fleet.
Yeah, so the way that was worded, the three factions are very sensitive to who acquires new hangars, as space is limited in their bases. Only those who have proven themselves will be allowed to expand their fleet by acquiring new hangars. So I guess what they're saying is it's not necessarily a faction vote kind of thing, but when you have proven yourself, probably through the point system that they're going to have, that is what then allows you, because they did mention a point system. They did mention that that's how you get new hangars. But initially, just to accommodate parking your ship in the garage, you're going to have to, if you got a big ship, you're going to have to upgrade it with Atlas. Let's see. In-game activities will bring recognition for you with your faction. You will need to work hard on this front to succeed in Scream. Your standing with the faction will be measurable, and aside from helping you expand your fleet, will also serve to calculate your rewards for your services on the faction's behalf in Scream, along with other in-game mechanics. Rewards will be paid to the members who serve in the Scream Wars by epochs. As soon as an epoch ends, the faction will divide a share of the earnings of that period among the players who served. It's interesting. I wonder how long those will be. Is that we're talking about? Like, is it a couple days, a week, a month?
Yeah, the timeline.
Your rewards will
they'll
be.
Mhm.
What's that?
No, I was going to say for sure there'll be ranging timelines for any of these to be achieved for sure.
Right. Your rewards will be proportional to the value you brought to your faction via your actions with your fleet. In other words, no payment without adding value. No glory without taking risk. Scream fully embodies the principles of our metaverse ambition.
Yeah, that is interesting. So it seems like rewards will be I'm not sure how long an epoch is, but instead of getting earnings every second in score, this will be like a larger sum paid out over a longer period of time repeatedly, which is quite interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting. I mean, again, depending upon how long it is. I mean, if a person is really wanting to become a play-to-earn style gamer in the metaverse, obviously they're not looking to wait months before they can actually get a payout to decide whether they're going to, as Punjab mentioned here, reinvest what they have earned to be able to upgrade their ability to earn more, or if they're going to take a percentage out of the game so that they can actually see a profit. It becomes this balancing act. So yeah, the timeline of how long those epochs last, if that is going to be one of the primary methods. Now, the other question is that the primary method for gameplay that involves battle? Because it's my understanding, based on Chipto's language, and we hope to have him back here on the show to kind of explain some of this stuff. He's traveling right now. But also to understand, if a person, for example, wanted to not be into the battle side of things, but wanted to focus more on the harvesting and manufacturing and that sort of thing, which you did mention is a path, could you do that? And then how profitable could that end up being for a person that invested that time within the game? So that's one question, and then what other aspects of gameplay can you just be doing? Market arbitrage? Can you, as Wagner mentioned, don't go and speculate on the market and try and buy up all the 4Rs right now in anticipation that those resources will be more valuable once Score is launched, or Scream is launched, excuse me. That makes a lot of sense. Obviously, that's not a good thing to do. But then the other question comes up. Imagine a scenario where Score is still going to be dependent on the 4Rs, even when those 4Rs become something that are produced by the player economy. So now you have a couple of things, like, again, getting back to the person that wanted to support Star Atlas from the investment standpoint, or a group like MMA. What if MMA is putting forward a bunch of, they purchased a bunch of ships as assets, and then now there's two things that are going to happen with Score. One is there's the amount of rewards are going to be reduced because now the reward cap is going to be shared with Scream. That's one aspect that's going to reduce staking structure for ships. And then the other one is that now the 4Rs are going to have to be purchased from the player economy rather than the infinite economy that is now paying into the DAO within Star Atlas. So for Polis, the Polis DAO. So then we also run into a potential situation where the cost of those 4Rs could go up exponentially, and there could be a shortage, which then renders you unable to even utilize Score in a profitable manner. So there's going to be some interesting game mechanics to work out, and some interesting situations coming up where both sides of gameplay are going to get kind of wobbly for a while, I would think.
Yeah, it's going to be his. I haven't really imagined being able to go out and fight other players this early with Scream. I'm not sure if my fleet is like ready for that. I have quite a varied range of ships, and it'll be interesting to see what other surprises we have when this thing finally launches. It does seem like it will be quite dependent on the economy with 20 different types of materials, but I doubt we'll see all of them at once.
Right.
So let's move on to fleets and experience.
I did want to make a point on the people who are trying to extract for return on investment purposes. Like it's going to be a juggling act to have or to have everyone satisfied depending on what they initially got in for. Because if you don't have a big fleet but you just didn't want to take part in any fighting, then you might not make as much because the game is going to push people to do more of everything. I'm thinking you could specialize in something, but that's where you become an asset to a guild who needs you to specialize in that. But as an individual, you might not fare that well just hanging out there saying, no, I'm a lone wolf. I'm just going to do some transferring of goods and services, right? Because you might get attacked. You'll have no protection. You'll always be known as that guy just traveling and being susceptible to attacks. And then you eventually just like team up with someone, I'm thinking, because you want to be profitable in a certain area of gameplay, and as an individual, it might just be that more difficult. It's possible, right? All these things are in the realm of possibility, but it's not promised, as it was mentioned earlier. Just overall, making a return playing score. So that was my thing. But here, continuing, as we have stated, everything in score revolves around playing it. So therefore, the measurement of effort you put into the game will reflect your experience within the system. Your progress in the experience ladder will enable you to control more fleets. This feature adds a crucial layer of complexity to Scream gameplay, since on later levels, this will allow you to have multiple fleets at different points of the galaxy simultaneously. This is especially important considering that Scream is oriented to faction objectives. As a result, war will be fought on many different fronts, requiring players and factions to spend their armies and fleets through multiple systems and make tough choices about where and when to engage with enemy forces. But if this wasn't enough of a perk, experience also has other uses in Scream. Another impactful aspect of it is that it increases the rate at which you accrue right loyalty with your faction. Okay, so the more experienced of a pilot that you are, the more your fleet will impact your faction, which will affect every activity that benefits your standing, as such as your gains in by epochs and all other features mentioned above.
Yeah, so I mean, it sounds like they're going to be working some of those aspects in the gameplay, such as the loyalty, the badges. It was mentioned that there's going to be a bump from those that are poster holders, the early supporters. And to Monk's question here, I'm curious about the bonuses that you get for keeping your ship staked. What do you get for having a veteran or higher fleet? That's completely unknown at this point, but it would be curious to know if that actually does something for you in the game, being that these are two separate programs, because technically once you unstake from your score fleet, it no longer has that rank for time staked. But does that mean that ship carries that over? Does that ship or is that something that's specific? I think it's specific to just score, meaning like as soon as you unstake it, it's not so good. One of the things they did mention too is that the game is structured in such a way that it is better for you to have all of your ships in a single account. You will actually level faster than you will if you try and spread them out so you can have multiple fleets. So yeah, I'm in a situation where I have two just because I was using a different one just to kind of measure some stuff. So now I'm thinking about moving that back over to my main wallet just to put it in play. But again, the other things that we don't know is like there's some of the things that we got as bonuses for the ships, like you got a captain. Does that play a role? Does the
jackets,
the jackets that we got, will that give bonuses? You got a Taigu, you got some things like that. What role do those play?
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting.
Yeah, the sooner the better. But I think all of this that we're reading and going to be involved in the near future is going to give the team enough time to maybe postpone a lot of these detailed things or modules that were talked about being a reality, because they're going to have to now have some resources and attention going towards nerfing and buffing certain habits, certain routines, certain resources, and the like. So, yep.
Yeah, one bit I wanted to read from the multiplayer bit is another feature that we particularly enjoy is the multiplayer aspect of the game. In addition, in Scream, you may organically cooperate with players from your faction to fulfill the in-game objectives. By coordinating with your guild members and the faction members as a whole, you'll be able to reach new heights of efficiency and success. Scream is heavily oriented towards multiplayer cooperativeness.
Yeah, so the emphasis on teamwork is great to see, and it's going to really rally people around their guilds that they've been a part of for so long, and it might propel some to leave other guilds to then join a different guild, depending on how long and if they were around and active enough. So that's an interesting. That's a whole other part of the game.
I would also be curious to know, like, will guilds can a DAC have hangers? In other words, can you that'd be an interesting way to create kind of a support mechanism for a guild, is to be able to invest in adding hangers or scaling hangers so that you could make those available to your guild members.
Well, if you could only get them as an individual, new hangers, maybe you can donate or contribute them to the DAC, right? And then it could be upgraded quicker than you as an individual can do it, which would then further grow the guild and its missions to accomplish.
But can DACs also get points? Because somewhere earlier on it was talking about DACs being a crucial aspect of things, and how there's I seem to recall that there was some form of reward system that DACs themselves were able to receive.
Yeah, well, if that is the case, then that's fine. But I'm leaning more towards the DAC has to be contributed to by individual players, which is the guild, and that there goes that teamwork aspect of the game where you'll excel much quicker, and then maybe the potential to earn is greater if individuals of a guild are able to accomplish as individuals and then contribute to a DAC instead of a DAC just being created and then a whole bunch of hangers being acquired. Yeah,
here it is right here. It says, finally, rumor has it that Atlas secretly flows from the factions to the DACs for their service. So it seems like there's a way that DACs themselves, like your DAC will be rewarded. And then, of course, it's up to your DAC leadership to probably figure out, and your DAC as a whole, as governance, to kind of figure out how you're going to disperse, distribute, or reinvest those resources.
Yeah, and then to Raw Mega in the comment section, the fleet ranking when you pledge them, if you still gain the fleet ranking when you pledge your ships to Scream, or start from scratch. And then there's a developer for the Cyberkongs community named Owl of Moistness, and he is also working on the land staking contract for Axie Infinity as a contractor.
Wait. What's his name?
Owl of Moistness. So he's been in the community for a long while, and he goes into the name and the purpose of the name, but it was just like an Xbox, I think it was back in the day, or a Reddit forum. He saw the name of someone who wrote something and he thought it was cool. So besides the point, there's already something called, and I might be butchering it, but there's a lock mechanism to an existing contract that he created, which is a smart contract where your VX Kongs, which are interoperable with Sandbox and other platforms that you can use your VX Kong with or for, based off of the initial NFT, which is a 2D Cyber Kong, right? So the whole point of me saying this is that assets that you have as NFTs can be locked in a contract. In this case, it would be the staking of our ships, and then simultaneously they're secured and they're not being transferred out of your wallet, but you're able to sign transactions and do other things while they are staking, as we're talking about now, playing the game. so you wouldn't forego any history and experience that you would gain for your ranking when it comes to ship staking. And although this is all on Ethereum, not sure what devs and the Albert Einstein brains are behind with Solana, but if something similar could be made, it's totally happening right now with assets on Cyberkongs and their lock staking. And in their white paper, it goes into detail, and they even have the GitHub information for people to check out and to use. So yeah, just knowing that's a thing I don't know how the team is going to go about it with Star Atlas, but it would suck if you just had to get back out of staking, lose your rank. But then, but then we have Wagner saying on Twitter, like, make sure you keep your rank. So maybe at some point that's going to be a thing, or I don't know how they're going to go about it. It's exciting, but hopefully it's not one or the other.
Yeah, some of the next steps include battle logistics, upgrades, crafting possibilities. Yeah, it's really interesting to have that insight into everything. Like last week, we had this video, and this week we have like the more updated hood that looks a lot better. So nice. Yeah, like this would look great with like the way we have this picture. It's hard to imagine how it's all going to work out, but
so yeah, well, that picture there, when I see this, I don't think of the entire. I see this as one system. You have you have your big star, you have your sun in the middle, and then you have a number of planets there. So this is just this is one planetary system.
Yeah, let's have a look at the other one.
That's where the other one. Let's see here.
So yeah, it'd be like this, for example. Looks like it, yeah.
And are they showing that as if it's the center of one faction?
Let's take it back a bit. So that was just one little dot in the center.
Yeah. Okay, so basically we're looking at one planetary system within a region within a faction.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And you
well, there's two. So the zooming in here, there's another sun just north of this system here. If you go back and it's zooming in, you see one above. So there's two essentially in that shot. I don't know if you could time it perfectly, but yeah, bam, see, so on the top.
Mm-hmm. And also you see how they're showing you those jump points in that. Let's look at the blue. Let's say that blue faction.
Right.
ONI. So that's the ONI faction. And then right now it's showing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different jump points. So those are probably star systems within the faction. But then there's a layer that isn't mentioned is that, remember, because it goes faction, region, then star system, then planet.
Right.
So it looks like that one place that it jumped to, and I guess maybe those are just showing a jump points, like going from here to the others. Yeah. Through that jump ring there. Warp is too far. I like how it goes in. It spits right back out in the same direction.
Yeah, I'm curious. It didn't show any pop-up of where you'd want to go. Like, I'm thinking you can choose. There could be a little drop-down menu on what if you wanted to go to a specific star system within your faction. It just bounced you, So I wonder if they're going to implement that.
You have the actual choice. That red dot. I wonder what that is.
Maybe the center?
Is that it's like a flashing red
cargo?
dot.
So maybe
that's cargo everyone could race towards.
That's probably a target point. It's like, so maybe like whatever your mission is just showing you the location.
Yeah, or it could be like a distress call, perhaps.
Yeah.
Awesome. I do like the way it says you can unconsciously work with your faction members because there'll be these big objectives to do. So
hive mind type of this.
Yeah.
I'm also curious, like, in-game communication for DAX, will there be a comm channel, a way that you can talk to people there, or will we just continue to be using Discord?
Yeah. So these are all star bases here, and the original star base that we land in for the faction, that's level 6. and the highest level is level 5. So just to start off, you're in this like overpowered place that's safe, which is assumably where you are going to have all these low-level quests. Be interesting to see how fast you can like speed out on like a fresh character out into the high-risk zone when that's available.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Another thing,
You see warp and health. So we know what health is. I mean, obviously, it's the health of your ship and how much needs to be repaired. And is warp? Is that? I mean, is that just trying to be a representation of fuel? Like, because if up top at the top of these, we saw another thing where it showed you how much of the 4Rs you have up there at the top, so you can see all of those resources. But I'm curious what they're trying to display here, and how much of this is mock-up, and how much of it is actually model for actual gameplay.
Yeah, it might be a bit
maybe
annoying remembering all these planet names. Earn for, but,
and you can see that like those ships, like the Ogrica, that Mick. It's not sure what the 5500 represents. Maybe that's its level number of points, and then it's a level 1. So your ships themselves, it sounds like they can be leveled up. But then if you have a ship that's reset, is it completely, when it respawns, is it back at level 1 with no experience starting over again? And what happens to your crew and such in that regard?
that would be quite savage if it reset however many days of staking. Like 150, I think, right now, since it launched.
Yeah.
I do think these buttons at the bottom are quite interesting as well. So there's withdraw ship, local inventory, cargo management, and on dock. Yeah. And not sure which language this is, but it's quite interesting.
Well, that's cool. Yeah. So you've got the name of the planet up top. It's the number of the planet. It's a tier 2 planet that's mostly forested. It is colonized, and it's medium in size. And then, of course, they just got mock-up text. So even those displays there could also be mock-up, because we don't know what those are. What I guess those represent resources, and how many of those resources are left. So then that raises another question. Do what you see for resources in the planet, is that the collective resources available to everyone, or is that just what you see through your lens in playing the game? If it's collective, then the other question is do those planets replenish resources?
I didn't realize it, but something's blurred out as well.
Yes. Is that a Titan?
So I was looking for this OMR 201 planet, and it's not there.
It's not there.
I think. So it could be that. It looks kind of green, even that's blurred.
Yeah.
So it's a forest type planet, and it seems to be like the only green one here. So that might be why I think these guys are fighting.
But then there's that green bar on top. From this distance, it looks like a bar, and it's been depleted like maybe 25% of, if it 100%. I don't know if that. Oh well, yeah. On top, it's a ship. No, I'm thinking this has to be a ship, because then you see the blue and green. So that's why I said maybe it's a Titan, and they didn't want to reveal maybe how it looked, or if it's one of the.
I'm kind of getting a Visa Sopod vibe from it.
It does totally looks like that. Yeah, it has that kind of. That it's funny that we can extract that from a blob, but that is totally what it looks like to me too. As were the rest of those. I mean, it's clear that at least the ones on the right are the refuelers, the R8s.
Yeah.
At least they look like it.
All right.
Yeah, very cool.
Tell us what you think it is in the comment section below.
Right.
Could be like a Titan ship as well. Who knows?
Spilled coffee.
So there was also the 2 for Attack tournament this week that ended, and 2 of our players were in the top 25, the Man and Alpaca Furioso. So that was really cool.
Good job, guys.
Real quick, I want to answer or just thoughts on this question here. Do we think it's a disadvantage to have a lot of extra small ships like the Pierce X, like 30 Pierce X4s because of the hangar system? That's a good question because we don't know the hangar size yet. What will the stock hangar will accommodate? And maybe is a situation where it will either fit one OPOD or 20 X4s. We still don't know that. We also don't know how far off like the race mechanic, because there is a lot of race ships, and I think that there's just so much opportunity for a race component for everything from the jets on down. So yeah, hard to say, and it's also hard to say like what utility a small ship's going to give you. But I can't imagine they won't work that in because this is the entry point for the game. You have to make it so that a person can show up with an extra small ship and actually have something to do. Right now in Score, it's really, really tough with an extra small ship because unless you're manning your staking around the clock, you're going to miss out. And also because the staking amount's really low, yeah, it's really tough right now. There's not a whole lot of incentive for you to participate in Score with an extra small ship. Let's put it that way.
The way I look at it is if you can fit like one Visa SOPOD into a hangar, you can probably fit like 20 PX4s in there.
Right. But then again, remember, like you can fit some ships in ships. Like right now, isn't it said that like you can fit a hero and a guardian? So does that mean that if I can fit a guardian in my hangar, can I also put one of my heroes inside my guardian that's in the hangar?
You can put a PX4 in the hero.
Right. It's just like Russian dolls. Get them all stacked up.
There you go. Then bam, surprise attack.
Right. Just keep opening up. Here's another one.
So yeah, shout out to the man Alpaca for
Yeah.
There was also the sandbox competition, and we're just gonna look at some of them because they're really cool. So this is one Michael shared.
This is insane. Yeah. Didn't you say this person is like a designer? So that's like they have this background.
Yeah, there's a lot of people in Sandbox who make things, and if you have the experience before the competition started, you had a massive advantage.
Yeah.
Because it is really complex, but also quite simple, but you can do complex things with it. This is another one.
Yeah,
that's
pretty good looking ones.
Yeah. I like how it jumped out of the frame. That was cool. Stepping out.
It's crazy some of the things people did.
Transformers.
It's the new stuff, yeah.
There you go.
And he's solar powered. Any of you guys do the sandbox competition? Yes, we have one person that jumped in there, and I know you're going to show us yours at some point here.
Yeah, I could put it up.
Who we got?
Check it out. This is Fancy Hat's entry. How's that, man?
Oh,
I like them.
Yeah, it took a lot of time.
Yeah, it looks really good.
When I uploaded it, I had to change it to a GIF, and that kind of compressed it. So the one I submitted isn't as high resolution, which bothers me. I might have to resubmit one. But yeah, I had fun with it.
Work on that.
Nice.
Now all we need to do is win first place and buy a Titan ship, man. With all those with all that sand.
Yeah,
that's cool.
That one's
so
cool.
The long tail I built that after, and it's hard to animate things if it's one big piece and long. But yeah, people came in with the idea of animating. I kind of made a statue that looks good in a couple positions, but yeah,
it's cool. It took some work.
Thanks, guys.
The details.
So there's a ton of really good submissions. yeah, it's going to be hard to get 2 and 3 are all really, really good, and the rest are kind of, they're good, but they're not as nice as the top 3 prizes.
Wow, that's a cool one.
Yeah, it's got a little bird. Wow,
Dove flies in.
like when you submit, you kind of hate everyone else who submits.
I wanted to see the staff there light up, and then just like a wisp of smoke.
Fry 'em. That's a good one. Like, get off my staff. Like, we're in space. How are you even surviving?
Right? Space bird.
That's me.
There it is.
There you go. Runner up.
It's crazy some of the things people do. Some people did like ships as well.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's not what they asked for, so they might not get let through. They asked for NPCs.
Yeah.
Even if it's like the best vehicle in the world. That one's cool. But yeah, it'd be fun to see like the best ones they vote for. That's crazy.
All right, Whiplash.
I think I lagged out for a second there.
It's creative. Yeah.
Yeah, just a second.
What else we got, man?
Yeah, I think I lagged out for a second there. So, yeah, we had the sandbox competition, 2 for Attack, and that massive town hall. Some of the interesting things were that they have like no exposure to Luna, that whole debacle. So that's a good thing. And the secret project I mentioned before, like flying around in Unreal Engine. That's going to be really fun. But yeah, so that's it for Star Atlas. If you want to go ahead with Axie-Ray.
Yeah, I wasn't able to pull up some tabs or slides, but for the most part, Axie Infinity, we can play on Android now. So if you have an Android, you can download the V3 Origin gameplay APK and just start playing on your phone instead of your browser, like you have been, or the client for Sky Mavis. Also, there's maybe not as significant and should have been released earlier, an SLP burning mechanism where you could just put in the amount of SLP you want and it goes to a burning. It just gets burned, so it doesn't get held at another address. It just evaporates from the total supply. So there was some people in the community doing competitions of how much can be burned and contributing to the ecosystem, helping the tokenomics of SLP, as this is just another burning mechanism where you can just on your own just type in a number and burn SLP. So yeah, and other than that, we're just waiting for land staking, and it's going to be promising if we can play V3 land on our phones, just as we are with the battling V3 gameplay. Whether it's similar to other games, you just harvest. You can craft, and we have photos and things of that were released from the team. So yeah, I'm excited for that, where you can start actually earning and contributing to an economy, just like we're doing now with Star Atlas. And then on the DeFi Kingdoms front, although everything just took a shit as far as the markets and the prices, the team is still sound. They officially doxed every member of the team on a YouTube live stream just like a week and a half ago, if you missed it. And they have enough money, even with the prices where they're at now, to keep going. And they are very adamant and punctual when it comes to, maybe not every project is going through something or the other. But for the most part, I think they've bounced back from that initial Jewel exploit of minting Jewel. And, just the macro stuff is kind of putting a heavy weight on a lot of projects. because at one, well, I can't speak for everyone else, but if markets go down, a lot of people just disassociate from keeping up with projects and what's being developed. They just take a step back. Yeah, and then other than that, Nyan Cats, they have a new game. I don't know if you could pull it up fancy, but I showed the trailer of the first trailer that came out, and then there was an actual gameplay footage. It might be pinned on their Twitter, or if not, one of the most recent videos that were uploaded. But either way, Joe, check out the Nyan Cats. This is a Solana game, and they actually have a game footage. I think Kagi-Jan on YouTube and others might have covered the footage. It's pretty cool. I think minute and a half or 2 minutes of actual gameplay. So we see a lot of these games developing in ways where you're going to be able to do things with what you've purchased in some way. So this is promising compared to what we're coming from, where it was just a bunch of promises and conversation and maybe just clicking. I think that was pretty much it for me. Nothing's coming up other than that. I have other projects I'm involved in. Fancy birds. I'm renting out my birds, and I'm breeding my Genesis birds. But that's more of like a speculative type of project partnered with Illuvium, and it's humming along. And they're going to build on top of arcade type games for birds, an 8-bit type of game situation. Undead Blocks was another project we had the executive director on, and they're releasing their beta on the 26th of this month, where you're going to be able to play with your friends, shoot up zombies, first person zombie shooter. Yeah, and I'm looking forward to just being able to play these games and not feel like it's going to take 10 years to do something with what I bought.
I agree. So
yeah, I think
that seems everything we had today. A lot of the noise this week has been about the Terra Luna stuff and just general market sentiment. But yeah, we're still here, and we'll be here next week as well, at the same time.
Same time, same bat channel.
Yeah,
also,
if any of you guys are...
Go ahead, Ray.
No, I was going to say for Gala Games, they have that May Mayhem. So for Spider Tanks, if any one of you are interested in picking up or playing with the free one, we have members of Rome who are playing currently. You could team up and make another team of 3. Or I think what's going on this week is individuals. So you have to move up the ranks as an individual compared to playing with a team. And and I think there's that Town Crush game that came out for Gala Games where it's a Candy Crush duplicate and potential of earning there. So that was pretty cool. I know that game was really a big daily active user type of mobile app. Yeah, there it goes.
Yeah.
So how much you can earn, and we'll see what the tokenomics are with this. But yeah, good one to watch.
You wanted to say something, Witty, before?
Oh no, just I was going to say that if depending upon whether or not we have a bunch to talk about next week, one of the things that I was going to share it this week, but we had the town hall for Star Atlas, so it had a bunch of cool stuff to talk about. But I've been in the process for the past couple of months now doing research on a course that I'm creating about all things metaverse. Ray and I were talking about this earlier about, one of the things that drives the market obviously is adoption rate. And one of the things I feel is really going to help adoption rate is by educating people, about what's being created. And so as a part of that journey, I've really been deep diving into all different aspects of the metaverse and all the building blocks. And one of them that really stands out that is pretty cool is some of the stuff that's happening with AI. And so I was going to share some of that this week, but if we have time, I'll actually jump into a little bit of that next week, show you some of the things that are actually out there functioning today that I think are pretty mind-blowing.
Yeah, the team's out there. The Star Atlas team is out there, company meetups, so might not be too much from them next week. Unless
Indeed.
they have something planned. But yeah.
Sure enough. All right, guys. Any final words? Or are we wrapping it up?
Yeah, it looks like it. Thanks for watching, everyone.
Cheers.
Well,
Atlas Miner,
take care, guys.
You were born to pushed the block in search of ore. Now it's time that you are gone, so farewell, Atlas Miner. And farewell, Mud and Oni too. Who's the sector same to you? The pirate bastards ran him through, so farewell, Atlas Miner. They promised you a diamond mine, but I'll be damned, it's hard to find. I hope there's justice for their crimes, and farewell, Atlas Miner. And farewell, friend, don't take it hard. Getting killed ain't all that bad. They'll treat you well in the repair yard, so farewell, Atlas Miner.